Okay, people. So, with episode 10, the final installment of Apple TV Plus's Foundation series dropping today, I decided to take a look at the series as a whole. And yo, let me just tell you, whoa, like episode 10 is crazy. It is, oh my days, it's got everything. Intrigue, right? There is so much intrigue in there. There's twists, betrayals, revelations. You know what I mean? And the ending. Oh my god, I was so excited. Like it was coming to the end, and I'm just like, oh, if it's that would be amazing. And then there's a yo, it happened. Oh shit, people. God damn it, you are gonna be in for a treat. Okay, so yeah, it was boy, I can't remember when I heard, right? Because it was it may have been in 2017, right? It may have been when the production started, but yeah, I remember when, you know what I mean? Just like the intrigue, because for years I'd heard that Asimov, um, you know, Asimov, Isaac Asimov, people, the one of the grandfathers of sci-fi, him, Richard C. Clarke, you know what I mean? Just laying it down back in the day, right? And yo, when I heard about these books, this series, and it was so good, right? So good. And I've always wanted to check it out, but Audible didn't have the motherfucking books, right? And now they've got the original trilogy, but they don't have the other books. And it's a bit like, I don't want to start it until everything is there. You know what I mean? Because I'm gonna be pissed. I know I will get to the end of that third book and be like, all right, but what about the other shit, man? You know what I mean? Knowing there's more and not having access to it, it is irritating as a motherfucker. And that's the thing. I love Audible, man. It has enabled me to get into so many books, but it's that limitation sometimes where not everything is, you know what I mean, ported over. And even when they're big books as well, right? If it was a little small book, I'd understand. But when it's a big book and it's not, you're just like, motherfuckers, what are you doing? What are you like? Sometimes, which is really irritating, you have book 2 of a series, but not book 1. And it's just like, I remember mailing them one time. This is a tangent, people, but bear with me. All right, I emailed them one time and I was just like, yo, I see you got book 2. Do you think you'll do book 1? And they're like, well, it depends on the interest we get with that book. I'm like, yeah, but you won't get interest because everyone will know it's book 2. No one's going to dive into a trilogy on book 2. It is ridiculous. Anyway, whew, got that out of the way. So this adaptation of Foundation was from David S. Gower and Josh Friedman. You know what I mean? We had Bear McCreary composing it. Executive producing was Gower, Friedman, along with David Ellison, Dana Goldberg, Bill Boast, Robin Asimov, Marcy Ross, and Cameron Welsh. It's from Skydance, right? Which I thought was interesting, because I think Skydance, I feel they came from the comic book world. I feel I feel that's right. I might be wrong, but yeah. Now, the episodes range from about 45 minutes. I think the longest is an hour and 6 minutes. You know what I mean? Or maybe an hour and 15 minutes, something like that, right? Yeah. I feel it's something like that. You know what I mean? I might be wrong. I never am, no, people. Come on, let's be serious, right? But they do have the rights to the entire series, right? Which ooh, is enticing. You know what I mean? It is enticing because it does kind of lead you to think there could be a good number of series, you know, because there's the original trilogy, right? Um, then we have got, um, you know, what, two prequels, right? Prelude to Foundation and Forward to Foundation, and then two sequels, Foundation Edge and Foundation and Earth. So you kind of feel that we'd maybe get 5 seasons, right? And the prequels, they could thread the prequels maybe in as flashbacks or something. I don't know. Or you could finish and then just do another follow-up series like before the Foundation. I mean, that would be something, right? I don't know. It's hard because I ain't read the books. You know what I mean? I ain't read the books, people. But yeah, it's super intriguing how like all of this came together. Having Asimov's daughter involved as well does seem fitting. It does feel like, you know what I mean, it's there to hold it all together, right? Now, before I started all of this, I remember it was, man, gosh, I don't know. It was a long. It was during the London Film Festival, I think. Someone had told me that they'd veered off from the books, right? It was kind of the backbone of the books, but you know, they've changed the story in places. Now, from what I hear, it kind of makes sense because the books span thousands of millennia, right? A lot of jumping around and all of this kind of stuff. So you can understand, you know, some things. And I think it's maybe a good thing if you haven't read the books or you haven't just read the books, you know what I mean? So there's that detachment in it all. Actually, I've just noticed that Gower said, with Foundation, we can tell the story hopefully over the course of 80 episodes, right? So it's 80 hours as opposed to try and condense it all into 2 or 3 hours for a single film. You know, that's interesting. I see, and as I said, yeah, it makes sense, right? It makes sense. So, our cast. Oh, cast is pretty frigging fat, right? So we've got ruling the empire. There is Brother Day, who's played by Lee Pace. Does feel like Lee Pace has been in a lot of big ass franchises. You know what I mean? Which is pretty cool. So Brother Day is the Middle Empire clone, right? Um, also have got Brother Dusk, played by Terrence Mann. He's the Elder Empire clone. And you've got Brother Dawn, which I think you probably guess, right? Played by Cassian Bilton. He is the youngest Dawn Empire clone, right? Which is and it's kind of interesting how they play all of that with the clothes and all of that kind of thing, right? You do have Cooper Carter is a child version of Brother Dawn in the first few episodes, right? So we also have got probably, let's go with one of the main characters, Harry Seldon, right? Who's played by Jared Harris. We have got Lou LaBelle, played by Gail Dormick, right? Who is a mathematician protege, self-taught. Lee Harvey, who plays Salva Hardin, Warden of Terminus, right? Man, I do think that yeah, those two are two of my favorite characters. Maybe because they're both fine as hell, but no, they're very good characters. I like those characters. We have got Laura Bin plays Elo Demoiselle, right? Who is the last surviving. Well, actually, I'll let you find that out. Right? But the interesting thing about that character, it kind of ties into as one of Asimov's other series, which kind of gets indicated, I think I've read, in the later two sequels. Boy, who else do we have? We have Raish Foss, who is the adopted son of Harry. He's played by Alfred Enoch. We've got Cheryl. He's the I think he's the shadow. I think that he's the shadow master. No, he's not. He's just an Imperial agent. Okay, an Imperial agent. We have Abus Hardin, played by Clark Peters. That's Salva's dad. We have Mari Hardin, Salva's mother, played by Sasha Bahir. God damn it, I knew I recognized her. I couldn't. I was trying to think. There's people that you see in here and you're like, I know that person from somewhere. Who the fuck is that? Right? Hugo, who is kind of Salva's boyfriend. He's played by Daniel McPherson. He's a thespian. The Grand Huntress Farah Kian, played by Kubra Sait. Man, that's a fun character. That really is. Oh man, and it gets crazy when she comes into it. Louis Pierna, played by Elliot Cowan, right? The director of the foundation, who took over. And man, that character, yeah, kind of hate him at first, right? We have Azora Adil, played by Amy Tiger, right? Now she's a gardener, but whoo, ho, you have to watch out for that character, boy. Yeah, that was an interesting story plot. We have the Shadow Master, Oberect, played by Mido Hamada, who, a decent character. We don't see him much, which, you know, I may have said too much. All right, we got a Commander Dorwin, played by Christian Contres. Zephyr Halima, Aoife, right? She's played by Tanaya Miller. Another very fun character, people. Ooh, ooh, ooh. We also have the master statistician Tyval, played by Ian McNeice, and the voice of the Deliverance is Chippo Chung. Right, so yeah, that's all of that. Now, what is this series about? Okay, so I'm going to read you two, right? So here's the one for the TV series, right? It says, far in the future, the Empire is about to face a reckoning unlike anything else it's faced before. Several millennia of chaos has been predicted by the galaxy's leading psycho-historian Harry Seldon. But can the Empire offset the disaster before it begins? Which, I mean, yeah, it's all right, but I do prefer the one you find on the book Wikipedia. The premise of the stories is that in the waning days of the future galactic empire, the mathematician Harry Seldon spends his life developing a theory of psychohistory, a new and effective mathematical psychology. Using statistical law of mass action, it can predict the future of large populations. Seldon foresees the imminent fall of the empire, which encompasses the entire Milky Way, and a dark age lasting 30,000 years before a second empire arises. Although the momentum of the empire's fall is too great to stop, Seldon devises a plan by which the onrushing mass of events must be deflected just a little to eventually limit its intergarium to just 1,000 years. To implement his plan, Seldon creates the Foundation. Right? Group of scientists and engineers settled at the end of the galaxy to preserve the spirit of science and civilization, and thus become a cornerstone of a new galactic empire. Right? Now, that is very interesting because, right, Asimov got the idea from the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, right? That he read that, and that kind of planted the seeds for his new creation, which, right, though that original trilogy, it was published between 1942 and 1950. So old this shit is, people. You know what I mean? So but like a lot of stuff like Dune and Lord of the Rings and many other fan favorites, Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff, it was first published as short stories in a magazine, you know. But then in 51 and to 53, that's when it became the 3 books, right? And man, it was so goddamn good, right? There's a TV show. Boy, it was so friggin' enjoyable, people. I loved every friggin' moment of it. You know what I mean? It's like I think it speaks to people who probably enjoy Game of Thrones, The West Wing, maybe Lost in Space, right? There's just all like Battlestar Galactica. I just think it's got just so much involved in it, you know, which is just so intriguing. You know, like we start off on the water world, right? Because of Trantor. No, we said the water world isn't Trantor. I forget the name of the water world, people. But she comes to Trantor because she's kind of ostracized. Synax, that's the water world. Because she's kind of ostracized, right? And what we learn of Synax, it is kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy, but it's funny because we do see some of that in today's society, in what's happened over the last 3 years of people trying to stifle information flow, right? And I think Synax is, whew, that's when it gets crazy. And we've seen it in the past, right? And that's the interesting thing about this for me, is we see these circles, right, of shit repeating themselves. And though this is sci-fi and it's set in the far future, we had that period where books were being burned, right? Information being stifled, right? Just all of that. Religious fervor, the Crusades, the witch hunts, the Inquisition. There's been all of these things, which is funny because people don't look at that shit and think, we shouldn't repeat it. They're just like, huh, why don't we try that shit again? You know what I mean? But yeah, so we see what's happened to Gale and how she comes to Tranta, the capital of the Galactic Empire, to work with Harry Seldon. She's won this competition to kind of solve this mathematical conundrum. Well, it's kind of not to solve it because Harry's already solved it, but it's to see if you can understand his theory, right? Now she comes thinking this is the start of a new life, right? And she potentially makes a couple of friends on the way. But that really unravels quickly when, so literally she sits down and it's dropped, like this whole thing is dropped on her. And you're just like, yo, okay, where the fuck is this going? You know what I mean? But but you kind of think, all right, no one's dying, right? No one's dying because that would be too insane to kill someone early. Even though Sean Bean, he met it in Game of Thrones, and didn't think that was coming. You know what I mean? But yeah, the story just we see this shift, and the great thing about the shift that early is you get to see the layer on layer and layer of thinking, of manipulation, and how it's been worked to trigger events. Right now, at the same time, chances are given, but they're scoffed at. Right, and we're seeing all of this, and it is crazy. We do have a time jump, after that, but we jump around, so we see that situation. We do get some flashbacks of Gale and what led her to go, but not a lot. That's all teased, which does get fleshed out as the series progresses. We also kind of see Cleon's, right? The Empire clones, which they're all based on this one early guy, Cleon the First, and he had a vision, and so he's been cloned ever since, right? But it's fun the way they do it because you get the young, the middle, and the old, right? Which does seem to make sense, right? Because it kind of helps to even out decisions, but it does get crazy. It really gets fucking crazy, man. But we see all of this, and it's the funny thing is because we get the we get to see how that changes, right? What happens with these clones, we see it, and then we see the consequences of decisions that get made in the first couple of episodes, which again, very fun, right? So all of this is just unfolding this space opera, this such in-depth story, and you wonder where it's going, right? So we get taken to Terminus. We hear about the plans for Terminus, and then when we get there, we kind of have a whole new cast, right? We have a whole new cast, but and you're thinking, oh, okay, all right, but this new cast is interesting. Have the warden and Salva Harden, all of that, but then suddenly we get these flashes back to other stuff. We're back with the Cleons, right? And we're just like, oh shit, okay, right? How does all of this tie in? And the story starts to unfold, and you understand, right? The threads that are binding all of this together, and it is compelling. My days, it is so compelling, right? There's a huge thing happens in episode 2, which I have to say, right? You do kind of feel if you build something of a certain structure, right? Surely you would kind of think, all right, maybe something like, what if something happened? You know what I mean? But yeah, it's not quite. But it is, like, I do kind of think we have seen something of its like, but I think the way it's captured in Foundation, oh man, it is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. So we have this big thing. We also have our first huge character shift, maybe let's say that, which is just, you're just like, what? Like, wait, what? How the fuck? I thought that was, whoa. And you're just like, well, there must be more, right? There must be more. Now, we don't get a lot of clarity until late in the series. But when you kind of hear some of the rationale and everything, you're like, oh shit, I understand, right? It does make sense in some twisted way. But yeah, it was just like, it's fuckeries, man. But then, the ghosts arrive, which is like, oh shit, what does this mean? We get these huge kind of shifts in the interplay of the characters, but yeah, you kind of wonder, what does this mean? Right? It's a little throwback to events that happen in episode 2, which is nice, right? And now this is, again, it's years in the future. So you're just like, okay, yeah, I get that, makes sense. But what's the end game? Right? There's a lot of cat and mouse shit going on. But yeah, I didn't find any point in this that I was just like, oh, this is so dull. You know what I mean? I was just hooked all the way through, and it just builds and builds and builds. Right, we start to get these weird dreams and flashes. You know what I mean? That's very interesting. We get to see Gale's early days on the Synax, which at first, with where we last leave her, you do think, oh, is this future? But then you realize, oh, no, it's past, right? But it makes sense. But yeah, see some dark shit. And you're like, oh, shit, man. That's some craziness, right? But when you think the series has gone, right, as crazy as it might get, we then we then see some other shit like the death of the maiden, right? Which again kind of then ties into I guess a lot of maybe I might be wrong, but it feels like a lot of Jewish mythology, right? With pilgrimages and the like. But that yeah, it takes you somewhere and then it throws you back. But in throwing you back, you kind of feel really sad for this character that you kind of think is an ass, right? Well, you think he's an ass, but you think he's redeeming, and then you think he's an ass, and now you just feel bad for him because of the ramifications and everything like that. But in the last kind of few episodes, the breadcrumbs are there, and that snowball is picking up, picking up until we get to the very end, because you have got things that were thought lost come back, right? Deaths, plans upon plans, backstabbing, just intrigue, and the end episode, you're like, how are they going to pull this shit together, right? How is it going to come to a head? What's going to happen, right? Because I need to feel fulfilled, right? I know, like, it's gonna finish on some sort of cliffhanger because they always do. As these like TV shows, they always end like that to try and entice you to come back, which is kind of a little crazy because you're gonna come back, right? If you've enjoyed a season and you know there's more, you're coming back, right? But it's just like, how will they end it? Right? Because we've had so much. It's been such a roller coaster, and phew, the end, the end is crazy. It's crazy, right? You have all these hopes, right? There's searches. There's a time jump, and you just think, what the fuck does this mean? What does this mean? And then we get this crazy thing at the very end, which, boy, it's gonna fill you with joy, but also like, what the fuck happens now? Right? That's gonna be the big thing. What the fuck happens now? Yo, people, the foundation, so enjoyable. I love the way it all came to a head. And yeah, I think if you've been enjoying the series up until this point, you will not be disappointed with that last episode. Okay, so people, boy, enjoy it. Let me know what you think. Right? Let me know what you think. Because yeah, I just don't think anyone's gonna be. I was gonna say I don't think anyone's gonna be disappointed. Now, I will caveat with if you know what I mean? If you were a huge fan of the books and read the books and all of this and loved them so much, yeah, it might be a little, I can't believe they changed that or they left that out or they merged those characters. I get it. I get it. But, it's a different media. And I always kind of expect some sort of change when you're taking a book to TV or to film. So I hopefully people can, I think experience it for how it is. I think Gower had these comments to make, right? To our colleagues in the fourth estate. We started this journey on Foundation nearly 4 years ago. And while I knew that adapting Asimov's work would be the biggest challenge of my career, I couldn't possibly have anticipated the gamut of psychological and physical hurdles we'd have to face in scaling this mountain. I know you know what I'm talking about because we've all suffered through the same collective experience. I myself lost my mother to COVID complications last May, just after our production was forced into hiatus. And I really wish she could have lived to have seen it. When I first pitched the show, I told my partners at Apple and Skydance that I wanted the series to communicate a message of hope. Hope in the human spirit and a hope in mankind's capacity for ingenuity, because it's, let's be honest, we need that ingenuity now more than ever. So yeah, I'm definitely a fan of all things science. I know this sounds highfalutin, but now that I'm a husband and a father of three, it was important to me that we provide a silver of a light at the end of the journey. I think that's a sliver of light. Yeah, a silver of light doesn't really make any sense, does it? I'm really reasonably certain the bulk of you will be taken by the scope and spectacle of the filmmaking, but it's my earnest hope that you also find yourself transported on an emotional level. Everything should be available to you on the Apple TV Plus. Yeah, that's not for you. That's for me. But I understand what he's saying. I see it because I think it's there. You know, this is the human struggle, right? What we're watching here is the human struggle, is the human experience. As I said, look, when you look back at history, it's all there. It's all there. So, man, I love this shit, and I cannot wait for season 2. People, I hope you enjoy it.